topic today is communication. And communication is extremely important. And I'll tell you why. Thank you. I'll tell you why. Because communication connects two people's minds. And since we are social beings, we live in a social environment, we need to connect to other people. What does that mean? Suppose I am now working in an office, okay? And now I have a boss, an employer, or I am an employer and I have an employee. I need to connect to them. I need to tell them what is in my mind in order for them to understand. And if I don't explain myself or I don't communicate it in a healthy way, the other person will not be able to connect to me, to understand me. So now imagine that's in let's say an official office, but imagine we don't connect to our dearest people around us, spouses, children, close relatives, dear friends. So what happens is that the other person and myself have what we call a disconnect. There's no understanding of one another. And that becomes very, very difficult when you're dealing with your closest people. And this is something that I feel needs a tremendous amount of understanding, awareness, a lot of practice, because a lot of marriages that fall apart is because they don't have the skill of communication. Let me give you an example. Suppose a husband had a very hard day, a very difficult day, and he comes home and he is in a bad mood, right? And his wife now doesn't know anything that happened to him during the day. She doesn't know. He didn't say anything to her that, let's say that he lost maybe a $10,000 order. Okay, $100,000 order. She doesn't know anything that happened. He comes home in a bad mood. Now, she worked very hard for dinner. She worked, she prepared, she actually made his favorite dinner. And he comes home and she says, "Oh, how are you? How was your day?" And he's in a very bad mood and he shrugs his shoulder and he's not thrilled. He doesn't talk to her. And after a while she says, "You know, I made you your favorite dinner. Can I serve it to you?" And he says, "I don't want to eat now. I don't want to eat. I'm not hungry. I don't want to eat now." She gets all offended and all hurt. She says, "You know, he's like an animal. He's so mean. He's mean. I work a whole day. I prepare for him. I do for him. And he just doesn't appreciate." Now what's lacking over here is the communication. See, if she would say something like, "You know, honey, it hurts me when you come home like that. I prepare so much for you. I want you to enjoy what I prepare for you. I love when you enjoy when I prepare for you. But I notice that you come home and you kind of like slam the door in my face. You kind of just ignore everything that I did and you stay in your own zone." See, if she would communicate what's on her mind and he would communicate what's on his mind, there would be a connection. So this is basically what communication is. Now I'm going to go back and I'm going to start from the beginning. I wanted to give you an example of how a lack of communication can affect us tremendously. We have a gift. The gift that we have is called, we are in the level of a medaber. Medaber means those that speak, those that can speak. God bestowed upon the humans a gift of speech, right? What is the gift of speech? The gift of speech is the art of being able to communicate what is in our minds. Now, if you notice, throughout the levels of creation, there are stones, and then there are creatures that walk around, and there are animals, and they communicate, but they don't communicate with speech. They don't communicate with words. Man is the highest level of creation, and they are given the ability to speak. That means that this is a gift that we have, and we have to utilize this gift. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about the marriage, okay? Because the greatest communication is obviously in a marriage. Now, of course, anything that I say about the marriage can be taken to the children, parents and children. We have to learn how to communicate with our children, right? And I'll give you another example of a child. A child comes home in a bad mood and throws his briefcase and slams the door and pushes his sister, and his mother immediately says, "Oh, you can't come home like that. No, that's like an animal. Get out of the house, get out of the house. No, you're not walking in my house like that. I don't allow you to come in like that." The mother is lacking this understanding of what is going on in the child's brain. If the mother would say, whoa, you look like you had a very difficult day. See, the child cannot communicate it. The mother has to understand it. So you know what would happen? The child would feel understood. Part of communication is the understanding of the other one. And a lot of times we don't understand the other one. Now, girls, you know what's the saddest thing? And I always give this example because I feel that it touches a raw nerve of a parent. Let's say the parent is very flustered with a child that comes home in a very aggressive mood. Or take a teenager. A teenager comes home also in a very attitude-y mood and gives the parent a lot of attitude. Every behavior has a motivation. That's something that we have to know. Every behavior has motivation. Nobody does a behavior without a reason for it. But let's say later on you met someone. Let's say you went to a party at night, and now you met someone, and she tells you, "I hear what happened to your son today. I heard he was on the bus, and people ripped off his kippah, and they took away his seat, and they were throwing him around." And now your stomach begins to sink. You're like, "That's why he came home like that. And I punished him. And I punished him. Not only I didn't understand him, but I punished him." All of a sudden, you feel sick to your stomach. You want to go home. You want to hold that child. You want to hug that child. You want to ask that child for forgiveness. You see, what was missing here is that bridge of communication. Why didn't he tell me? Why didn't the child tell me? It's the same thing in a marriage, where we tend to get very, very hurt. And it snowballs from one to the next to the next, because we are not understood and we don't know how to express ourselves. So let's begin with the marriage. The marriage has 3 parts to it. It has the self, okay, the me. It has the other one, your spouse. And it has the unit that eventually you want to become. So when we go in a marriage, we understand that there's 3 parts to this. There's myself, all my needs. There's my spouse, the other one's needs. And then there's the unit, the oneness that you hope to create. And this unit that you hope to create comes from really a deep understanding of one another. So how can I ever become one with my spouse, right? How can I ever become united with my spouse? It's not easy, and I'll tell you why. You see, there are many factors that get in the way of a couple. There are many differences based on certain factors that happen, certain dynamics that happen, certain logistics that happen in our life. For instance, I'm a girl and he's a boy, hopefully, right? I'm a girl and he's a boy. Never said that in the past, but now you have to say that, right? What does that mean? Okay, it means that the gender, right? The idea that I am a girl, I am an emotional being. A boy is a very logical being, right? So now, how can we understand each other? How can we communicate? I'm all emotion, and he is so logical. So you come home and you tell your husband, I am exhausted. I remember when I got married, I said, oh, I'm so tired. And my husband's like, okay, so go to sleep. Like, I don't want to go to sleep. That's not what I want. And then like you walk away and you're like all annoyed, like, don't you get it? Like, all I want you to say is, wow, you worked so hard today, right? Now, years down the road, we train each other. We learn to understand each other. But a boy is a very logical being, and a girl is a very emotional being. Here's another example. My friends, I met them on the street. They all went out. They never invited me. So your husband's like, okay, so don't be their friends anymore. They're not your friends. Don't consider them your friends. And you're like, okay, forget it. You just don't get it, right? That's because the gender differences are tremendous. Then we have our family differences, our backgrounds, right? How we were raised. I was raised one way, my husband was raised another way completely. So it's very hard for him to understand where I am coming from. And it's very easy, to make a mistake in that way. Because he was raised in one way, I was raised completely differently. So let's say he was raised in a more liberal home. He was raised in a more progressive home, a more modern home. He was raised in an old-fashioned home. That's going to affect his understanding of me, who was raised in a completely different way. Then you have, culture. Going back, certain cultures carry certain, there's certain ways, their stamp of how they behave in life. That's going to make a very big difference. Communities, right? Even in our big Syrian community at large, there are many small circles of communities, and these impact the way we think. We are a product of our environment, right? That's a saying. We are a product of our environment. So if I live in a certain community, I am a product of that environment. My husband grows up in a completely different community. He's a different product, completely different product. So you see, these things are going to get in the way of our communication, girls. And then one more factor, and that is we have different strengths and different weaknesses. Husbands have certain strengths, and wives have certain strengths. So accordingly, my mind works according to my strengths, according to my beliefs, according to my way of working and understanding the world. That's how I am going to think. Okay, now what happens? The oneness that is created when we have a mature mind, and I want you to listen to this because I feel that this is an educated crowd already. Your faces are familiar, you've come to many lectures, and we constantly have to go up in our understanding, in our maturation, in our education. So imagine, girls, there is what we call the mature mind, okay? A mature mind understands that of course, I'm different than you. Of course, we have our differences. However, right, I consciously make an effort that I knowingly and consciously make an effort that I will be, I want to be in this relationship even though I will be pushed out of my comfort zone. So what does that mean? The mature mind understands, of course, I'm going to be in this relationship even though I'm going to be pushed out of my comfort zone. For instance, my husband doesn't like to spend money on small things, and I love to spend money on small things, right? that sets the stage for arguments. Now, again, go back. Where does he come from? What does his, let's say, background dictate? Who are his parents? His idea of saving for a house, right? He's a man, a different gender. He's more logical. See, go back and understand where he is coming from. So when, let's say, one partner and the other partner comes in, and now one loves to spend on petty things and the other one loves to save, right? That sets the stage for argument. But instead, you see, a mature mind understands, this is my balance. Of course not. It's great that I have him. See, that's how a mature mind would take it, is that you don't only respect the difference, you don't only understand the difference, you embrace the difference. You love the difference. Why? Because imagine you had your husband and he would say like, honey, please, please, please. Okay, you did a couple of things this week. Maybe just now, let's hold off a little bit. So he creates the balance in the marriage. Isn't that beautiful? If not, your marriages would be tilted. They would be completely collapsing because there would be no balance. See, Hashem created this dynamic of differences. Opposites attract. Why? Because now you have balance. So let's say we are the more easygoing, chilled parent. We're not so strict. And your husband comes home and he says now, I can't understand, why are the kids eating snacks before dinner? And he gets all bent out of shape. So we understand again where he's coming from, all those differences that I just mentioned to you. We understand, and you know what? Instead of saying, you come in like a policeman, you come in like a macho, the kids are gonna hate you. Like, how is that gonna create a nice relationship? Instead, girls, a mature mind says, I appreciate the difference between me and him. Thank God there's a father here to put some discipline in the family. Kids, really, Daddy's right. We should put the snack away, put it by your plate, eat your dinner, and then we'll have the snack. So now you have balance in the family. But all these differences, girls, need communication. How do I get myself to communicate to my husband? He could be a little nicer when he says that. And how do I get my husband and even myself to understand how to communicate that I don't love when he acts a certain way? I need him to act a kinder way to the children instead of this very difficult way, right? So differences, we understand, have to be respected, they have to be understood, but they also have to be actually embraced by the other one. Then we can communicate. So the way you communicate, girls, is crucial. Because if I would say, imagine he comes home and I say like, let's say I even say it later on at night. I think I'm great. I say it later on at night in the bedroom. I can't believe the way you come home. Like, you're so aggressive. I don't even know why the kids like you. Like, they're not going to like you. I'm telling you right now. And it happens to be also that you just don't get the children. So think, girls. There's something called outcome thinking. Think. Are you going to help this person in any way? No, you shut the door. He just pulls back. See, he pulls back another step from you. You create a greater distance. Remember we spoke about the self, the other, and the unit? We want to go one step closer to the unit, not one step further from the unit. But imagine I say to him something like this. See, communicate, but use your minds, girls, use your brains to say, what would my husband love to hear, right? He would love to hear, all men love to hear that they are great. He is the best father in the world. That's what he wants to hear, right? Imagine I say, you know, honey, you are the best father. It's a good thing I have you because you have much more discipline. I have the more easygoing, and together we are one. That's great. I'm just thinking, like, you know, maybe, see, so already I gave him the compliment. I am communicating what's on my mind because I cannot allow him to come home aggressive every day. I will not allow that because the kids are getting hurt. Really, the kids are getting hurt. So instead, I say something, outcome thinking, I'm going to tell him what he likes to hear, and then I'm going to stick in like the sandwich, you know, I'm going to stick in one line, you know, I'm thinking, honey, I had such success when I spoke to the kids kindly and softly, like they listened in a minute. It was crazy. You know, they knew how to listen. I bet if you try it, it may work. You know, just come down a little bit. It's okay. Probably it's hard for you. You had a hard day. Probably you're tired. I can imagine. Probably it goes, validate him. It goes against your grain. Some people have a very strong sense of justice. It goes against their grain when a child does something that they don't agree with. Let's say like eat a snack before dinner. That just goes against their grain. It's their principle. They're people of principle. So we cannot negate that. Instead, what we usually do is like, all right, get off your high horse. These are kids. They're kids. What do you want from them, right? But that's not going to do it. No. See, our goal in communication is to come one step closer to each other, one step closer and closer. So we have to communicate in a way where we are understanding of the other one. And again, we are not supposed to be the same. A successful marriage is not one where husband and wife are identical. Of course not. That's ridiculous to think. Husband and wife are usually very far from identical. They're usually opposite. You understand? And that's okay. As long as we respect and we love the other side. See, we need to understand, we need to embrace the other side, and that is our balance. Now, it's interesting. Usually, that strength that the person has is our weakness, and our strengths are their weakness. So together, we come together and we create that balance in the home, which is great for the children. Now, girls, let's say I want to communicate something which is a little bit deeper. A lot of people, I'm not going to do it here, but imagine I were to ask you a question. And do not raise your hands. I'm just hypothetically asking you the question. Imagine that I were to ask you, how many of you can share your deepest secrets with your spouse? How many of you feel comfortable to share your deepest secrets with your spouse? Right? Now, some of you obviously can, some of you cannot. Why? It's about understanding how to communicate and making yourself vulnerable. Now, it's very difficult to make ourselves vulnerable to another person. You know why, girls? Because I can hear a no. I can get a smack in my face. Not literally, but emotionally. I can be like told by the other person like, oh, that's ridiculous. Don't be a baby. For instance, let's say I say, you know, I was really, really hurt. My mother or my sister did something to me and I was very, very hurt. And he's like, okay, don't be a baby, just get over it. Boom, that's like a smack in my face, right? It hurts. So the next time, I'm not gonna share that with him. I'm not going to share anything that's very deep inside of me with him. So that becomes very difficult. And you know what happens, girls? There's no way you can ever become very, 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 very close and one if you're not vulnerable to your spouse. So how can we try to fix this? So what we're going to learn is a great skill. Okay? And it's the I talk message. Okay? I talk versus you talk. Now I need to communicate to him that I was hurt. I need him to understand that I was hurt right now. So I can let it sit for a little while, and then I can go to him and say, you know, honey, I'm sure you don't realize it, but I get very hurt when I'm called a baby. I don't appreciate it. And he's like, okay, like you're being so sensitive. Honey, I need you to understand. See, now look how I'm talking, girls. I need you to understand, not you. You are so mean. You are, let's say, a bully. You don't understand me. You talk in a very, very mean way to me. You are hurtful. See, the minute I say you, I will sever the communication. The minute I say I, oh, that's a whole different story. I was hurt. See, I need you. I need you to understand. Oh, that's something else. It's not about him. It's about I. So when it's about I, the other one can understand. Now, girls, this is a great technique for everything. I'll give you another example. When you, let's say some of you are grandmothers and the kids come and they make a mess with the toys and you're like, okay, you need to clean up the toys. No, I didn't do that, it wasn't me. Okay, you need to, no, grandma, it wasn't me. No, you need to do it. You don't get anywhere. Instead, you say, guys, I need the toys to be picked up. Okay, now what are they going to answer you? But grandma, I know, honey, I need the toys to be picked up. It's amazing. It works like a charm because none of them have that finger pointed to them. Because when we get that finger pointed, we just tend to go away and we walk back a couple of steps from the relationship. So let's work on this particular skill. I'm going to stress it again. Let's take a couple of examples. So one of them would be like, you know, I very much don't like to be called a baby, honey. If you want to say I'm sensitive, you want to say something that's a little bit nicer, I can hear it. Maybe you could say, maybe it's not so great to be sensitive like that. But I need you to understand that I don't like when you call me a baby. So now I just communicated to him. And you know what? He might shake his head like this and like that, but watch, girls. You have a 60-70% chance that he's going to respect you. Now, you know what, girls? I'm going to tell you something else. Imagine, take this marriage, okay, and go back. Imagine I say something to my husband and he goes, oh, come on, stop, you're such a baby. Right? That's very baby. You're such a baby. Stop. You're too sensitive. I always tell you you're too sensitive. So now, like we said, I walk back from the relationship. He doesn't have the skill to understand and to communicate. He doesn't know at all what he's doing. But neither do I. So now I say, you're so mean. You're mean. Now really what I mean to say is, I'm hurt. I don't mean to say you're mean. I mean to say I am hurt by this choice of words. So now I say, you're so mean. And he goes, I'm mean? You came to me. I told you. Okay, you know what? You don't want to have help? Fine, no problem. So continue the way you are. Okay, so you continue. You see if you're going to be successful. And before you know it, you have one on one side and one on the other side. With a little tact and a little understanding of what it means to share in a healthy way, to communicate in a healthy way what you feel. Honey, it hurts me when I'm told that. And if it really was something terrible, I would even say, that's a 10 plus for me. You know, give me a couple of 10 pluses. That's the most important thing. The most important thing is that I need you to listen when I talk, or I need you to respect me when I talk. I need you to respect me. See, not you are so disrespectful, you are so mean, you are, you don't act like a husband, you're the worst husband, what kind of husband are you? That's all these words, girls, are like arrows in a man's heart. They kill him because a man really does care about his wife. How do I know? Because that's how God created the dynamic of the world. A man really does love his wife, and he really does want to protect his wife. He doesn't always know how to, but innately, a man is always the protector of the girl, you see? And what's over here, what he really means to say is, I care about you not being hurt. Just be strong. That's what he means to say. Why? Because he wants to see us happy. A man feels responsible for his wife's happiness. And when a wife gets hurt, he gets hurt. So he will just tell it to you, again, not knowing how to express it. So you see how this whole lack of communication from one to the next creates such distance. Now girls, imagine these young couples, okay? Take these new 20-year-old couples, 22-year-old couples, they're coming in with negative skill. They can't even say a sentence because of their texting, because of their technology, because of their circumstances. Again, they're a product of this generation. What are you going to do? You can't help it. But they have zero skill in communication. Now imagine they get married. And now all of a sudden they're talking like this. I hear them. I hear them in my office all the time. They can't. They're shooting each other down in the most painful way. How do you think they're ever going to get to that one unit of closeness? How is it ever going to be possible? It's very sad. And you see what's going on. Many of these divorces, and again, with no judgment, but many of these divorces could have been avoided. Not saying all, but many could have been avoided had they grown up with tact and skill. The understanding of validation, the understanding of listening. Part of communication, a very big part is listening. A man has to understand that when a wife comes and says something, to him, he needs to understand her and to validate her. A girl, on the other hand, also has to know how to read a boy. A girl, that's one of the biggest problems, is that the girls have no patience to read the boy. I'm not his mother. What? You're not a mother. You're a nurturer. What kind of nonsense is that? You're not a mother. You're not his mother, so you're not going to have patience to deal with him? And this is what girls are telling me. I say, honey, you need to have patience with your husband. You need to understand your husband. You need to know where he's coming from. Look at the differences. I'm not his mother. I'm not doing that. I have 3 kids of my own. This girl is not trained to be a wife. She's not. It's all about helping. You're helping each other develop. This is the generation that we live in, girls. And we have to make the difference, every one of us. If we could model healthy communication, which means the first thing is never criticize. Always use an I statement. Always remember, rule number 2, that you're going towards building a unit between you and your spouse, or between you and your children. I look at the way mothers talk to their children, and I can already foresee the future. This kid is not going to have a good relationship with the mother. Why would they? This kid is going to feel critiqued and criticized all his life, judged. The parent was never proud of them. This child is going to feel like that. So we have to be very careful in the way we communicate to another one. And I'm really sticking to spouses and children. Why? Because these are our closest people. And over here, communication makes the greatest difference. I'll just end with another idea. And that is that a person has to know that they are an emotional being. Okay, this is very important. People grow up, certain families grow up, and they're not everybody has to be super emotional and dramatic. That's okay. But you have to know that every human being has emotion, no matter what. And at, vulnerable moments, I've heard girls say, I just wanted to feel cherished, or I just wanted to feel loved by a man, right? I could fill my own tank, but I just wanted to feel cared for by this other person. And again, this is something that is not known to the public. Girls go in and we try to help them understand what are the emotional experiences that you want to feel in your marriage. You're like, I don't know what you're saying. You're getting married in 2 weeks. How do you not know what I'm saying? How are you ready to be married? They don't know. They don't know. People want to feel loved. People want to feel cared for. People want to feel cherished. People want to feel respected. That is lacking in our generation big time. And it's not old-fashioned to be respectful of another person, your husband. It's not old-fashioned. It's something that's built into the infrastructure of life. If you're not going to be respectful to your husband, you're not going to have a good relationship. It doesn't matter if you live in the early 1600s, in the late 2000s, 2000s, doesn't matter. It's in the infrastructure of life, is that every man needs to feel respected by his wife. And if you're going to put him down, you're not going to have a relationship. You're not. So a mature mind has to understand, look, girls, look. I can go on for 6 hours, but I'm going to stop now. But we have to understand there is a world of emotion. You have to know what are the emotional feelings, experiences that your husband wants to feel in the marriage. Does he want to feel respect? Usually you'll have a fight about that every single time, so you'll know it. Does he want to feel respect? Does he want you to talk softly? Does he want you to understand him? Does he want you to appreciate him? Some husbands will say again and again, you're so unappreciative. You don't appreciate. Okay, so you get it. You know. This man wants to feel appreciated. Pick it up. This other man will say, oh, you don't understand me. You don't understand me. Oh, so you'll understand. This man wants to feel understood. This girl wants to feel cared for. This girl wants to feel like cherished or treasured, right? So we all have emotions. This is in the infrastructure of the human being. We are created with emotion, and we cannot ignore these things. So this was just a little bit of a glimpse to help you understand, where we're making mistakes. Try to go home and think about it. And pick one idea from this whole, everybody's going to come home with a different something to learn from. And try to work on it, whether it's the I message, whether it's the understanding that everyone has emotion, whether it's anything that we spoke about, from the beginning until now. Listen to it and just try to work it out and try to see how you could communicate in a way that you show true understanding of the other one. I'll give you one more little tip, and that is that I want you to listen more than you talk. Listen to the other one. Look at them with eyes, girls. Avraham Avinu, when he was looking at the Malachim, it says Vayad. It says Vayad. He looked at them. What does it mean he looked at them? It means he looked at them more than with empathy, with what is it that you are really saying? See, look at the person and try to see what is it that they really mean to say, that they cannot communicate it. They don't know how. Look at them. Be patient. Go slow down a little bit. Look, try to understand, pay attention, and you will see that you are going to develop much deeper connection with that other person. When they feel heard, when they feel understood, when they feel validated, you will feel one with them. So I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.